Another way of looking at slope of a line is actually looking at it as an equation. So we talked about what it meant for rise over run before, so what we're going to talk about now is that slope m equals the change in y's over the change in x's. And the way that we can conclude this type of equation is that we have the second y, which is denoted with a y sub 2, minus the first y, which is denoted as a y sub 1, divided by x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So the subs mean that, say if it were 2, that means it's the y or x value that comes from the second point. Whereas if it's a 1, then it's the y or x value that comes from the first point. So say, for example, we wanted this point here to be 0.1, okay? And that means that this point here would be 0.2. So I can label these things. So my 0.1 is negative 1, 4, and my 0.2 is negative 4, 2. Okay, so now all we have to do is plug in our x's and y's. So remember that here's your x values, and the second number is your y values. So, to find our slope, we look at what y2 is, and so it's the y value on the second point, which it's this 2, so we have 2, and then minus our y1, which is our y value on our first point, which is this 4. So we have 2 minus 4 for our change in y's. And so now we must locate the x sub 2, which is the second point in our x values. So it's this negative 4. And then our x sub 1, which is the x value in our first point, we've got negative 1. But remember, since this is a negative, be very careful. We must still put a negative in there and then our x sub 1, which is negative 1. So sometimes this can get rather confusing because people already suspect that they already have a negative there. But remember, you're substituting in, so you have to substitute in that negative 1 with its sign. Okay, so from here all we have to do is simplify. So the first part, 2 minus 4 is negative 2. And in the second part here, what's underneath, we have negative 4, and then those become pluses. So negative 4 plus 1 gives us negative 3. So we have negative 2 divided by negative 3. So a negative divided by a negative is actually a positive. So we have positive 2/3. So we start asking, well, does it matter which point we make first or second? No, it doesn't. You should always get the same answer. So let's even try it, okay? So let's go ahead and erase all this. And this time, this is going to become 0.1. And then this guy over here is going to be 0.2. So I've got 0.1 being the negative 4, 2, and our 0.2 being our negative 1, 4. So now our slope is the change in y's. So our second y is this 4 here. So 4, and then minus our first y, which is our 2, divided by our second y, which is our negative 1, and our first y, which is a negative 4. So remember, you're subtracting a negative 4, which in turn becomes positive. So 4 minus 2 gives us 2, and then negative 1 plus the 4 give us a positive 3. So notice, it's the same idea. But just remember, if you start off with saying that this is going to be my first point, then keep it as your first point. Because a lot of times people tend to get those mixed up in the x's and y's.